Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation. I am Owen James. This is all your latest Rangers news, guys. As Niels Koppen is plotting for success, plotting the January transfer window, and plotting to take Rangers to the next level by building a squad capable of challenging for silverware. Yes, that's right. Niels Koppen has been speaking to Rangers TV. We've got some selected key quotes from him. We're going to talk through those and talk through what that means for the team. We've also got some news as well about the SFA actually coming to the common sense and stating that a decision actually went against Rangers and it should have been given in favour of us. I mean, amazing. You know what? I'm almost ready for the world to stop turning, pigs to fly, and then hell to freeze over. The SFA have actually backed Rangers for a change. Look, it seems strange, doesn't it? We are, the 12th of October now, and we're talking about the January transfer window. You know, obviously we had all the summer transfer window, we had all the speculation, we had all the rumours, the counter rumours, we had all the he's coming, he's not coming, he's leaving, he's not leaving, rumour after rumour after rumour. It seems that obviously now, with it being the international break, we're kind of, I think all parties interested in club football are kind of hunting around for something interesting to say about club football. And Niels Koppen speaking and talking about January has kind of reignited the January transfer window. And like I said, it does seem very strange that we are talking about the January transfer window, you know, even though we haven't even gone through and passed the second worst C word in the world. Yes, the second worst C word. I mean, we all know what the worst C word, I mean, the most offensive, the most disgusting C word in the world is. There is just no comparison with this word, a word that will offend many, a word that will make you actually really angry. And, you know, when I say it, Celtic, that's the worst C word in the world. Second worst C word in the world. It's easy, isn't it? It's Christmas. You know what? I hate Christmas. Anyway, back as I work in retail. Jesus, man. Try working in retail through Christmas. Anyway, let's talk about what Niels Koppen has had to say. Now, he gave an interview to Rangers TV. I've got to say, I still cannot unsee the love child of Nicholas Raskin and Ange Postecoglou. Really can't see that. Anyway, Niels Postecoglou Raskin was talking to the media about Rangers' plans for the January transfer window, where the club is going, what his intentions are. And it does seem that now with the departure of Craig Robertson, departure obviously of the fact that we obviously have no CEO, the departure of John Bennett and the temporary nature of John Gilligan's chairmanship, that Niels Koppen is taking a leading role in this recruitment, taking a leading role in organising the board, in organising the scouts, in organising everything as we move towards January. Now, he even talked about the fact that he tasked the recruitment team, and in particular the scouts, with identifying players for these key priority areas that we're going to talk about shortly. So interesting that, you know, moves are already afoot. Footage is being watched, scouts heading out to different places to watch players, analysis taking place, data analysis taking place. Moneyball is certainly in effect as well. Those of you who haven't seen that, the Moneyball film obviously is the sabermetrics. It's the idea of looking at player data and using player data to help influence purchasing of players. That's for you that haven't seen the film Moneyball, summarized in a very few short seconds. Yeah, if you haven't watched it, guys, give it a watch. Brad Pitt in it. It's about baseball, but it's still very good. Anyway, Niels Koppen, what has he had to say to the media? What is the statements he's had to make? Well, this is what he's had to say. He said, last week we had a meeting with the manager and board members to determine the strategy. I think we have identified the positions that we are weak in, understaffed, or need more quality. We know that, and it is now about talking about the budgets we can spend in the market and preparing for that window. Now, obviously, there is an uncertainty around the budget because obviously John Bennett has departed. We don't have a CEO. We don't have a director of football operations. And, you know, there will be, of course, an uncertainty in how much money is available. Is it a case of sell before you buy still? Or is there actually some funds there from some sources to actually go and spend? So, look, I mean, look, we can all sit here and we can sit here and say we don't have any money, we're skinned, blah, blah, blah. But I'll be honest with you, none of us actually know how much money there is to spend. None of us are privy to the accounts. None of us are privy to the discussions. None of us know the exact amount of money that will be pledged in January to strengthen this squad. Now, I think it's interesting that this strategy meeting has already taken place. Also, there is a clear, line in this that the manager, that Niels Koppen, that the board are aware that there are certain positions that Rangers still consider themselves weak in or understaffed in. So not obviously having enough players or needing a little more quality in. I think if we all wrote a list of players of areas we need to strengthen in this January transfer window, I think we'd all have a very similar list. I mean, obviously, centre back is a part, a place. Right back is another. Six is another. A winger is definitely one. And I think obviously one of the top priorities that we need to identify in this January transfer window is a striker. I think, the philosophy of going into the season with only 3 strikers has proven to be a bit foolhardy and not the best policy for the club. Obviously the injury to Danilo has left us very short in those key positions, and we've obviously had to rely solely on Cyril Dessers. So the situation I think is quite clear on the positions we actually need, and it probably will be those positions that Niels Koppen, Philippe Clement, and the rest of that meeting have identified. But obviously, it remains to be seen that how many players can you actually get across the line in January. January is notoriously a seller's market. When teams know that that other teams are desperate for certain players or desperate for certain positions, they can raise the prices on those players to try and get the best possible deal. And you may identify a player, you may say, well, okay, we need a left winger, or we need a right winger, or we need a striker, and this is the player we want to get. He's top of our list, and this is the guy that's going to make a real difference for him. But if his team's involved in Europe still, or his team's involved in in a title race at that point, if his team's involved in is looking like it's in trouble in January, then a team is going to be very reticent to let those players leave. It's going to try and hang on to them to at least the end of the season. So there is obviously a difficulty there in signing players in the January transfer window. Niels Koppen went on to say this. He said, on the other side, there is also the possibility that players leave the club. So we always have to be ready to replace them where necessary. The first steps have been made, and the recruitment team is now identifying these positions. So I don't think the recruitment team is identifying the positions in that, that the manager doesn't know where needs to be strengthened. So the recruitment team are drawing up a list of different positions. I think what he means by that, it's a bit lost in translation. The recruitment team are drawing up a list of possible targets, possible players who could be available, possible players who fit the mold for Rangers, possible players who could come in and make a real difference. So that's obviously, that one. But it's interesting that he says there's still a possibility that players could leave the club, that players could move on in the January transfer window. I think there's a very real possibility that, certain players and their futures do have to be addressed. You've got players who are obviously going out of contract at the end of this season. So, decisions need to be made there around, which players stay, which players go. We can't be faced with a situation at the end of this season, as we have been in previous seasons, where players leave for absolutely nothing. So it may be that some of those players with expiring contracts in 2025 are on the for sale block, especially obviously if there's no intention to offer them a new deal, or they have turned down a new deal. I think we've got to see a change of philosophy from Rangers that we're very much seeing in the Premier League in England, where when a player has 2 years left on his deal, that is when the club are going to him with a new contract offer. And if he refuses that contract with 24 months left on his deal, he is then obviously, transfer listed and put up for sale, because the team want to get the maximum possible value they can out of him. And everyone understands that the moment you move towards the last 12 to 6 months of your deal, your evaluation, your fee will, massively depreciate, because teams understand that all they've got to do is wait a few months and then they can have you for nothing. Koppen went on to say this: the first steps have been made in the recruitment team, and they're now active in identifying these positions. So I think it's really good news for me that the club have a clear vision, that Niels Koppen has a vision of what we need to do, that, there is already moves afoot to put into place a transfer strategy. And I think one of the things that has been missing, in past years, and part of that's down to, the fact that there wasn't the people in place to take the decisions, there wasn't the people in place to run the strategy. Others have been down the fact that the people who were in those places, in the positions of responsibility, like Niels Koppen, people like Ross Wilson, for example, were just unable to make those decisions, were just grossly incompetent. So I think, Niels Koppen, it's nice to see that we have someone who has a clear vision, a clear idea of what what to do, how to get these players across the line. Now, Koppen, I think, it's sounding like some sort of Arsenal fan tribute act. In Niels Koppen we trust. Arsenal we trust, that was their one, wasn't it? He's got a track record of identifying talent, which, I know he wasn't the one that was responsible then for signing. That was down to, I can't remember the guy's name, was it John de Jong, who was the PSV sporting director. But Niels Koppen was the head of scouting. He was the guy who found these players, the Sabaris, the Bakayokos, the Noah Langs, the Joey Veermans, these top quality talents from different places. And we've got to put our trust in Niels Koppen that he can go and find these players and bring in these players in this January transfer window. Now, one of the things for me is, whilst we should be obviously considering some of these young players, likes of Lyle Cameron and David Watson, for example, from Scotland, for me as well, we need to be looking at some experienced players, not just going for young up-and-coming talents, not players in that 22 to 25 age bracket or even younger, players who carry some experience, players who, can come in, hit the ground running and be leaders on the field. I think Rangers lack a real leadership core this season that, we've had in past seasons. We do miss that. So for me, there is a real need, I honestly believe, to bring in a bit of experienced talent in this January transfer window, as well as obviously supplementing that with some young, promising players as well. Right, guys, let's finish off this morning by talking about this decision from the St Johnstone game. Does anyone remember this? Bit of a blurred photo, but yes, it was the shirt pull on Cyril Dessers, a prolonged shirt pull, as the SFA termed it today. Now, according to the SFA panel, which Willie Cullum is part of, and this is what really shocks me, that Willie Cullum has been part of a decision that goes for Rangers. I mean, Jesus Christ, is hell about to freeze over? Both the all the people on the panel have ruled that the Rangers got a double, what they call a double red, a double mistake from the referee and the VAR assistant. Now, all of the members of the panel said that this should have been given as a penalty to Rangers, that the shirt pull and the hindrance of Cyril Dessers run into the box should have been finished in the awarding of a penalty, due to that being foul play under the rules of the game. So, yes, it's no consolation, to be sitting here after the game, a long way down the line, for someone to come out and say, yes, the ref got it wrong, yes, VAR got it wrong. It obviously opens a wide discussion about better refereeing standards, better VAR standards, getting decisions right first time. Because, look, there's going to come a time when one of these decisions that is being made, and there's no guarantee, obviously, we scored the penalty in that situation, but when a decision like that is made, it's going to end up costing a team, maybe cost them a place in the cup final, maybe cost them position in the league, which is, worth money, or it cost them relegation, or even a Champions League place. There's a lot of things that, that could stop from happening, and also could lead to unfortunate circumstances. So I think the referee does need to get his act together and sort out his standards and, look at these decisions. The VAR official also, I think the VAR official at times, turns VAR into a bit of a joke, doesn't it? With some of the decisions that are being made week in, week out in the EPL. Look, I think also part of it, though, has to be the boy who cried wolf syndrome, isn't it? I mean, Cyril Dessers does seem to go down an awful lot these days and flail his arms around and have a moan at the referee. It may be that it's the boy who cried wolf, that, that when Dessers does go down, legitimately so, that, officials look at him and go, oh, here we go, we're going to have another whinging session because he wants a free kick or he can't cope with it. So I think there is perhaps an element of that as well. I think Cyril Dessers perhaps needs to box a bit clever in the future when it comes to these decisions, to get the decisions for Rangers on the game day and not a few weeks after the game has taken place. Well, guys, let me know what you think of the stories we've covered in this morning's video. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. Please smash that sub, ring that notification bell, and obviously if you want to come and join the channel, you can for as little as 99p. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. Let's hope that this is the start of something good with Niels Koppen sorting this out, moving this club forward. As always, please remember, we are the people.